Good evening, everybody. I'll call to order our regular City Council meeting of November 24th, held virtually via WebEx, to order. The first item on our agenda, if you are all able to please unmute yourselves and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance, we'd greatly appreciate it. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States and to the republic which stands one nation under God, liberty and justice for all. Thank you, everyone. The next item on our agenda is the open forum. I will pass it to staff to explain how folks can participate in the open forum and let us know if anybody has submitted to speak.
Thank you, Mayor. Residents are able to participate live in our open forums here at the City Council meetings. You can call during this open forum portion. The number is 612-861-0651. You'll be connected to me here in the chambers and I can pass you on through. You can also contact me before meetings if you don't wish to speak publicly. My email is kwynn@richfieldmn.gov. You can also feel free to leave me a voicemail, and the number is 612-861-9711. And Mayor, I do not currently have anybody online.
Thank you very much, Kelly. We will wait a few moments just to make sure nobody calls in for the open forum. Okay, I'll ask one more time. Kelly, is there anyone here for the open forum?
Mayor, I do not have anybody on the line.
All right, well, seeing as we know we have nobody here for the open forum, I'll move us to the next agenda item, which is the approval of the minutes of the City Council work session of November 10th, 2020, and the City Council meeting of November 10th, 2020.
Councilmember Supple, I'll move approval.
Councilmember Whalen, I'll second.
Thank you. The motion has been made by Councilmember Supple and seconded by Councilmember Whalen. Analyst Martinez Gavinia, could you please take the roll call vote?
Mayor Regales?
Aye.
Councilmember Supple?
Aye.
Councilmember Trotman? I think, did we lose Councilmember Trotman? Councilmember Garcia?
Aye.
Councilmember Whalen?
Aye.
Just once again, Councilmember Trotman?
Aye. Hello.
We have 5 ayes. Thank you so much.
Thank you. The minutes have been approved. The next items are our presentations. We have 3 presentations from 3 of our commissions. So the first presentation is a Civil Service Annual Report and Presentation by Civil Service Commission member Mary Stratton. Thank you for joining us, Mary. Oh, looks like you're still on mute, Mary.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, it said I was unmuted. Thank you, Madam Mayor and City Council members, for the opportunity to present our Civil Service Commission's annual report. I am Mary Stratton. I am the president. There are 2 other members, Jeffrey Brusick, who is the vice president, and Jackie Harris, secretary. For those of you who are not council members or the mayor and might be wondering what we do, the Civil Service Commission was created by Minnesota statute, section 420.01. The Civil Service Commissioner's powers and duties are outlined in section 420.06 and states that the commission shall have the supervision over the employment, promotion, discharge and suspension of all officers and employees of the fire department. This commission met 4 times in 2020. We are required to meet the first Monday in February of each year. At that time, a secretary, vice president, and president are elected. Thereafter, the commission meets as needed. While we only met 4 times, it was a busy year for the fire department. 2020 has not only been challenging, but unprecedented for the city, the commission, and our fire department. We have had to navigate through uncharted territory with COVID-19 pandemic and our fire chief, Wayne Kiewicz's health issues. However, through all this, the commission approved rosters and certified the hiring of new positions, including a new battalion chief and firefighters, as well as promoting a new captain and lieutenant. During this process, the commission worked with the city's Human Resources Department, city attorney, fire chief, assistant chief, and most importantly, we asked for direct feedback from our firefighters. This was evident as we discussed the new battalion chief position. With feedback from Assistant Chief Dobish, Human Resources, the city attorney, and most importantly, the firefighters, we were able to make changes to the original draft requirements for the battalion chief position. I would like to stress as president of the commission that we do not work in a vacuum. It is imperative that the commissioners work with the city, the Richfield Fire Department, and the citizens to fulfill our duties under the statute. Now, with all that being said, the commission would like to congratulate Janelle Wood, who became the first battalion chief of risk reduction, Tim Hyder, who was promoted to captain, and Alex Crawford to lieutenant. We also welcomed new firefighters in the past year and a half, Leon Chambers III, Ryan Wolf, and Elisa Brokich. Further, the commission would like to wish Chief Kiewicz a speedy recovery. We would like to thank Council Member Edwina Garcia for her many years of service to our community and on her retirement. And we congratulate Richfield's new City Council member, Sean Hayford O'Leary. Finally, and most importantly, we would like to thank the City of Richfield's firefighters. Their continued hard work, dedication, and professionalism throughout 2020 is absolutely second to none. It is a pleasure to work with the Richfield Fire Department as a member of the Civil Service Commission. I want to thank you for your time, and I'm open to any questions that you may have.
Thank you, President Stratton. Are there any questions or comments from council members on this item?
I have a comment.
Yes, go ahead,
Yeah.
Councilmember Garcia.
Well, I always appreciate when someone comes up to give us an annual report in its professional, in its concise, it just flows just the way I picture that the Civil Service Commission works. I think they have done a heck of a good job, and I really like the discussion with all the firemen and your women, and the way the business is run more as a team than as a dictatorship. So thank you, Mary, and please convey my gratitude to the other 2 commissioners.
I will do so, and thank you, and happy retirement.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Thank you. Other comments, questions from council members? Oh, Councilmember Supple, did you have your hand up?
I just wanted to briefly thank the commissioners and everybody that's on the Charter Commission, because you work quietly behind the scenes and do a fabulous job. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Other comments from council members? All right, it looks like we don't have any other comments. I would just like to say thank you so much for your leadership, President Stratton. You've been such a great addition years ago to our Civil Service Commission. And how can we, how can we thank our firefighters? They've done such an exceptional job responding to so many things always, but with the pandemic, it's just been something that none of us could have expected. And we know that the stress and the pressure that puts on our staff, emotionally, mentally, we understand the impact it also has on your family. So we just want to say a huge thank you to our whole fire department. They are exceptional. And I actually get emails every, once in a while from other departments, fire departments, saying how great our leadership is, how great our fire staff is. And they just want to make sure that we know that. And I know that we see constantly our community giving thanks to our firefighters as well. So you are greatly appreciated. And we thank you for your leadership. And we welcome the Battalion Chief Wood in her new position, even though she's been with us for a while. And we thank Assistant Chief Dobish for stepping up in his leadership as well and filling in and playing that leadership role, continued leadership role in the unfortunate events that we've seen with our Fire Chief Kiewicz, who we greatly miss. And we hope a speedy recovery for him. But we want to share accolades and thanks all the way around, because people, our fire department has just stepped up tremendously. And there's a lot of individual thank yous to go around for our fire department. We greatly appreciate you all. Any last comments from folks? All right, well, thank you so much to President Stratton, to our Battalion Chief who's here, to our Assistant Fire Chief who's here as well, and anyone else from our fire department who's on. Please pass the accolades and the gratitude to the rest of our department. Thank you. Our next annual report and presentation is with the Friendship City Commission. So we have the chair, Marty Kirsch, Mayor Marty Kirsch with us today. Thank you for joining us, Marty.
I'm glad to be here, Councilman and Mayor. Paul is going to put up a slide for me.
Great, we can see it. It's up.
Yeah, good. All right, the Friendship City Commission 2020 Annual Report. We welcome our staff liaison, Paul Smithson, and we really are pleased with how he has taken over, trying to understand what our commission is all about. We revised our commission bylaws. Meeting location was moved from City Hall to the Wood Lake Nature Center because Paul had a couple of other commitments that same night, so it worked best to move it over there. We switched from quarterly meetings with additional meetings if two members or the chair call them. We held meetings in January, February meetings in person. March, April, and May we were canceled. June, September, and November meetings were held by WebEx. We did not participate in the Unity of Community, the Penn Fest in September, and we did support the fall dinner with the virtual support. We have ordered new t-shirts, which have not arrived yet, but we had one of our commission people who had a wife that was in design work, and she helped us work through that. So next year in 2001, we should have our t-shirts for whatever civic events there are in the city. The Heredia photo exhibit installed by the Friendship City Commission with Ambassador Cynthia Mandel in the lobby of City Hall. And then we've been spending most of our time working on our trip to Heredia, Costa Rica. We originally scheduled it for 2020. We had to cancel that. And then we schedule it for 2021. And due to lodging reasons in Heredia, we had to cancel that. So now we're working digital to have our trip in 2020. So that's where we've at with our commission for the past year. And we're looking forward to being able to do our trip. So are there any questions of anyone?
Thank you, Mayor Kirsch and Chair. Councilmember Garcia?
Yes, I want to ask Marty, how many times have you been to Costa Rica?
6.
Wow, that is very, very nice. You know,
We've been there every time the commission has gone. I've been there every time but one.
I'll be darned. Well, you know, that's what I like about your participation, is that you go all out and make sure that, you know, that with your experience in you're getting to know people and stuff like that, that serves us very well. And I think Cynthia Mandel is just terrific. So, you know, you're very much appreciated. And I hope that one day I'll be able to go back again. I've been only once. So please thank everyone for me, Marty.
Well, thank you very much for your kind words. And Ambassador Mandel is constantly working on trying to get our trip together and has so many connections down in Costa Rica that it's almost unbelievable that hotels, trips, people to drive our bus, she knows all these people and can get them to work with her. So thank you very much. Any other questions?
Other questions from council members? I'll just pipe in here. I just want to say I hope I have the opportunity also to go to Costa Rica. I would absolutely love to join a trip in the future. And I know it continues to be delayed, but I'd love to be a part of that delegation. And also, I don't know if this has been done in the past or not, or if it's something that can be considered, but are there options to have kind of pen pals or some type of correspondence between our students in Heredia and here in Richfield where they can connect with one another and have our youth connect? Is that something that the commission has ever done before?
Yeah, some years back we attempted to do that and I don't think it worked too well. Oh, the school years are different, so that didn't work too well.
Got it. Oh, that makes sense. Man,
But
that would be
that we should always explore. And we've been down there a number of times, and it really is time for them to come up this way, and we keep trying to get the group to come our way, but it hasn't been successful yet.
Yeah, well, thank you so much. Any additional questions or comments from council? Thank you to Chair Kirsch, to Mayor Marty Kirsch for your leadership, your tremendous leadership on the commission, as well as in our city and community. And thanks, please pass the gratitude on to the rest of the commission members too. And I know we'll be getting to Costa Rica hopefully sooner than we think, when it's nice and safe for us to go travel again.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Have a wonderful Thanksgiving.
Thanks, you too. And our last presentation is the annual report of the Arts Commission. And we have co-chairs Mia Simpson and Dr. Joyce Murray with us. So welcome, Mia and Joyce.
Thank you very much. And Joyce, don't forget to unmute. We're going to share a little bit of music from one of our commission members before Joyce starts us off.
Okay, thank you. Yes, Ma. Okay. This is a creative song.
Do you want to get us started, Joyce?
Okay, you can't get the music? You know,
We already played it.
Oh, you played it? Okay. Play the music. Okay, good evening, everyone. Again, I'm Joyce Marie, co-chair, and Mia Simpson, co-chair of the Richfield Arts Commission. To our mayor and council, we are so happy to report the 2020 report. You've heard Karen Wolverton. She's basically sought the music, and you all have received an email in reference to her music, so you can listen to it at your leisure time. So right now I'm going to talk about the Arts Commission. The purpose of the Arts Commission is to raise awareness of, promote the value of, advocate for, and support the arts in Richfield. So take it away, Mia.
Okay, thanks so much, Joyce. So we'll go through essentially our activities for this year. Despite the pandemic, we were able to accomplish a lot. And I would say our hallmark event was the 2020 poetry contest. To give a little bit of background, we've done 3 poetry contests through the Richfield Arts Commission. And this in particular was the second installment of poetry on sidewalks on 66th Street. We completed the installation between Portland Avenue and the Highway 35 bridge. A couple of things made the poetry contest unique this year. So one thing was that we encouraged multilingual submissions. So we had both English and Spanish entries this year. In addition, we expanded our youth category. And so half of the selections this year was adults, the other half youth, and we had a total of 29 poems placed on 66th Street. Finally, last year we held a public event to really celebrate the voices of the poets. And because of the pandemic, we didn't feel comfortable and wanted to follow city policy on having a public event. So we were able to instead do a virtual poetry event. And many thanks to Mary Kay Champa for her ideas and her coordination of this. So we gave poetry contest winners the opportunity to basically speak their poem, kind of a similar format to our bandshell event last year, and then included that with the arts programming from the Parks and Recs department. So the link provided in the slide is essentially the poetry event of the poets who were placed on 66th Street this year. We also had other initiatives that we were able to implement. The first listed there is we did some redecorating of the Section 8 room in City Hall. And so we added artwork on the walls, also added a toy chest to really make the space more inviting. And one of our commission members really spearheaded that effort, and we're happy to say it's complete. We also stocked the little library at the bandshell. The little library was a gift from the Rotary Club that was provided to us last year. And so we keep an eye on that year round and make sure that it's stocked with books. We continued our efforts on City Hall and Community Center arts displays. And so the Community Center and City Hall, we have a cadence of inviting local artists who basically feature their art over several months. And that effort continued through this year. We supported virtual programming in collaboration with Crossroads Panorama. So the book that we featured was essentially a reading of a children's book that was written by Dr. Joyce Marie. It's called Cherrywood Finds a Home. And we had a local community member read the book and also had her children provide background music. So supported programming for youth as part of that effort. We supported the We Are Richfield Library Arts Initiative. And so that was essentially an initiative from the Augsburg Library from a grant from the Minnesota Arts and Cultural Heritage Fund. We helped promote their request for a photographer, a writer, and a teaching assistant to feature multicultural arts events. The photographer and writer are going to be taking part and really building a book of that effort, which will be issued at some point by the Augsburg Public Library. And we also help them select a logo for that initiative. And then finally, continuing to support public arts. So as part of the Community Development Arts Initiative, to encourage arts as part of every future building development, we were pulled in for one art selection by the Berlin Multi-Family Housing Development by Target. And so help them select their public art as part of that construction effort. And we expect to see more in 2021. I know we're planning on supporting the Chase Bank construction effort on the corner of 66 and Lindale. We're also refreshing the Richfield Public Art Walking Tour brochure. So that work is in flight right now. I hope to have that ready soon.
Okay.
Okay, Joyce, yeah, take her away.
Okay. Thank you, Mia. I thought this year was very productive to our purpose and plans. Also, this was a challenging year. We had to be creative during this time, and during this pandemic. And so, I want to thank also Mary Kay, because she was dynamite. I tell you, this woman, she got things done. She took off and she got things done. So I just want to recognize her for all her efforts and work. So I, worked with Mia for this year. We worked great together. But with that being said, my 3 years of serving is up with the Arts Commission, and much appreciation to the Richfield Arts Commission and the council, city council. I appreciate all of you. It has been truly a blessing and a privilege to be a part of a community in the Richfield. So that kind of summed it up. But do you have any questions for us?
Thank you so much, Mia and Joyce. Are there questions from council members? Councilmember Seppel.
It's not really a question. I just wanted to say thank you to all the commissioners. I was fortunate to be their liaison and to be inspired with all their creativity and their passion in promoting public arts. And you could see it in everything they did. They even went out and repainted some of the sidewalk homes and refurbished them, and just went out of their way to do everything they could to promote art in the community and to bring people together. So I just want to thank them all for their passion and their creativity.
Thank you. Thank you, Mary. And thank you for being there also, Mary. That's great. You were there all the time in our meetings. We enjoyed having you there as representative of the council. Anybody else have any questions?
Councilmember Troutman.
Well, I did have a question.
Go ahead, Councilmember Garcia, and then we'll go to Councilmember Troutman.
Okay, I wanted to ask you, Joyce, are you going to reapply for the Arts Commission?
I am. I'll have to give that some thought right now.
Oh.
Yeah. So yeah, right now. If I'm back. Yeah.
Well, I really appreciated that you, Commissioner Joyce and Commissioner Mia, have really integrated yourselves into more of the community than, talk about creativity, that you've explored possibilities and that you've tried different things and that you're visible in the community, and that you've made all the people that have contributed from their artwork or whatever, the fact that, you know, you let us, the public, general public, know about it and also enjoy what you're doing. So many, many thanks to both of you and certainly your commission.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Those words, appreciate that. And I, you know, yeah, I appreciate that. We appreciate it much. I noticed that Mary Stratton was on there. I don't know if she's still on. I want to thank her because she nominated me for the Citizens Award 2018, and I really appreciate that. I just thought I'd throw that in there. But that's it.
You're welcome. You're a great neighbor as well.
Okay.
I love the way our commission members care for each other.
Thank you.
Absolutely. I
appreciate
had some comments too.
Okay. That's it, and we love you all. Thank you.
Don't leave just yet.
Don't cut him off,
Don't
Joyce.
leave yet, just yet, Dr. Joyce.
All right, come on.
You're not getting out of here that easily.
And Troutman, you
Yes.
Troutman, you were start to this, and I really appreciate you.
Oh, you're not getting out of here without me saying how much I appreciate your leadership and Vincent's leadership on this Arts Commission, and you guys, the volume of work that you've produced in the midst of these trying times is incredible, and the work, you know, all our commissioners do so much work. I'm so gratified though that we get to see the work of the Arts Commission when you do public art compounded year after year after year, and you put poetry upon poetry upon poetry, and that I am so encouraged and blessed. My wife and I, we walk up and down 66th Street all the time. We see the poetry all the time, all the work, not just the poetry that you're doing, but all the art just creates a different kind of quality of life and experience in our city. And we're so grateful that you guys have led us in that area. And please, 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 Dr. Joyce Marie, consider continuing to serve. We would sorely miss your leadership if you chose not to do that.
Oh, Joyce, you're on mute.
You were the start of this all, so you know I appreciate all of you. It has helped me to be a part of this. This was growth to me. I've grown through this whole process, and I really appreciate it much. And Mia has been a dynamite too also, and I really appreciate her co-chairing with me. And so, to all of you, much love.
We're not done yet.
Grateful for you, Joyce.
I want to share some words as well, words of appreciation for Dr. Joyce Marie as well, and for your service. And whatever you decide, I know that you'll continue to contribute so many amazing things to our community in Richfield. And I just want to make sure that all our residents know to please support Crossroads Panorama, a great nonprofit that Dr. Joyce Marie runs here in Richfield. And also consider, you know, purchasing her book, Breaking the Chains of Trauma, which is a great opportunity to reflect kind of what we're each going through right now as individuals, but also collectively. So we thank you, Dr. Joyce, for your leadership. And I also wanted to share a couple ideas for the Art Commission. And I know that there's so many different ideas, and I just wanted to throw some stuff out there to see if folks are interested. But I talked to community members and they say, we want to, you know, I'm talking to Galaxy Foods, for example. They want to do this big and beautiful mural on the side of their grocery store in East Richfield. And they want to know more of how to connect to resources and how to make that happen. I know they've connected with the commission, but I've had other organizations and community members say, how can we contribute to growing the culture and the community of arts in Richfield. And so I wonder if there's kind of like some resources that the commission could provide that help community members kind of take on what that might look like for them, whether it is, you know, a tiny library and doing that with their family, all the way to putting a mural on their business and getting the funds to do some type of project, or supporting a great organization in our community that's around the arts, like Crossroads Panorama. So I see that as a need as people come and talk to me. And also, how can we identify what are the different arts groups and organizations in Richfield and help people connect to those and support them? And then also in our community engagement survey recently, one of the areas that residents were very interested in and seeing kind of more investment in is kind of culture and diversity and art as well. So there's a real big interest in Richfield to really expand the culture and arts kind of environment in our city. So I think that's a great opportunity. And then lastly, you know, I've always envisioned when you go into City Hall, that is the home of the community and our residents. And what does that home look like and feel like for our residents? Right now, it's very simple, very clean, very easy to navigate, very beige, which is fine and good, and I understand. There's not a lot of seating. There's this beautiful panel across the where it's the council chambers is, where you could put a panel and a mural that's reflective of the community of Richfield. Maybe there's just some ideas of what creating a more welcoming, inclusive, reflective space through art, and obviously balancing all the needs that we have at City Hall at the same time. But that's kind of an idea of how do we create those spaces with our government buildings and our city buildings to welcome through art to our folks visiting the city of Richfield. So there's a lot of ideas there, but we are seeing results in our survey that say people want more art and they want more culture and they want to be involved. And I have people constantly contacting me asking, how do we grow this in Richfield? So I think the need is huge, and leveraging the commission as an asset is a great opportunity for us. So thank you to Mia and Joyce for co-chairing and for your tremendous leadership.
Thank you for your tremendous ideas and insight. Written down. I appreciate it.
Thank you also to all of you.
Absolutely. And thank you, Mary Kay, for staffing as well. And thank you to Paul. I know I did not thank Paul for staffing with the Friendship City Commission. So thank you to our staff. Well, we look forward to hearing from you in the future, but thank you to Mia, Joyce, and to our Arts Commission members for their leadership and service. I will move us to the next item on our agenda, which is the approval of the agenda.
Councilmember Troutman, I move the agenda.
Councilmember Whalen, I think you unmuted and were speaking, but we couldn't hear you. No, we still cannot.
Councilmember Troutman, I move the agenda.
Yeah, we heard you, Councilmember Troutman. Oh, sorry. I mean, Councilmember Whalen. I'm sorry. I must have said Councilmember Troutman. I know you were speaking, Councilmember Whalen, but we could not hear you.
Sorry, can you hear me now?
Yep.
Okay, I will second.
Great, thank you so much. The motion has been made to approve the agenda by Councilmember Troutman and seconded by Councilmember Whalen. Analyst Martinez Gavinia, could you please take the roll call vote?
Mayor Reagan Gonzalez.
Aye.
Councilmember Staple.
Aye.
Member Troutman. Member Garcia.
Aye.
Councilmember Whalen.
Aye.
5 ayes.
Thank you. The agenda has been approved. The next item is the consent calendar, and that goes to our City Manager Rodriguez.
Thank you, Mayor. The consent calendar contains several separate items which are acted on upon the City Council in one motion. Once the consent calendar has been approved, the individual items and recommended actions have also been approved. No further council action on these items is necessary, and we only have one item on our consent calendar tonight. Continue a public hearing and consider the approval of a resolution regarding the modification of the redevelopment plan for the Richfield redevelopment project area. The establishment of the 2020-22 Tax Increment Financing District, EMI, a redevelopment tax increment financing district, and the proposed adoption of the tax increment financing plan. So I submit this item for your consideration as part of the consent calendar.
Mayor, I will move the consent calendar.
Thank you, Councilmember Garcia. Councilmember Supple.
I would like to second that, but I wanted a point of clarification before we voted.
Absolutely.
I'm assuming that we're continuing both the public hearing and the consideration, so everything is being moved to a future meeting. Is that correct?
Assistant Director Palman.
Councilmember Supple, yes, everything is being continued.
Thank you.
Okay, the motion has been made by Councilmember Garcia, seconded by Councilmember Supple. With a clarification made, I want to open it up for questions or comments from council members on the consent calendar. All right, looks like we have none. So Analyst Martinez Gavinia, could you please take the roll call vote?
Mayor Reagan Gonzalez.
Aye.
Councilmember Supple.
Aye.
Councilmember Trotman. Member Garcia.
Aye.
Councilmember Whalen.
Aye.
We have 5 ayes.
Thank you. The consent calendar has been approved. The next item, number 7, will go to Councilmember Supple.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This item is a public hearing to consider approval of a modification to the redevelopment plan and approval of a tax increment financing plan for the 2020-3 Tax Increment Finance District, Link 65. The Richfield Housing and Redevelopment Authority, or HRA, approved a preliminary agreement with Enclave Development, LLC, now Link 65 LLC, or the developer, to explore the redevelopment of 65th Street and Lyndale Avenue on February 18th, 2020. In July, the developer returned to a work session to present revised plans for a 5-story mixed-use building that included 157 rental apartments and approximately 8,000 square feet of ground floor retail space. A preliminary financial feasibility analysis indicated that the financial gap would be too large to incorporate affordable units into the project, and instead staff anticipated a proposal that would pool tax increment dollars into the Housing and Redevelopment Fund. However, after significant work by all parties, the proposed development will include 10 affordable 2-bedroom units and also contribute to the Housing and Redevelopment Fund. On November 16th, the HRA considered and approved a contract for private development, a modification to the redevelopment plan, and a tax increment financing plan for the 2020-3 Tax Increment Finance District, Link 65. Tonight, the council is asked to also consider the modification to the redevelopment plan and tax increment plan. Madam Mayor, before we go to the staff report, could we have someone explain how people could call in for the public hearing so that they could be starting to call in while the staff gives their report?
Absolutely. If staff could explain that, that'd be greatly appreciated.
Thank you, Mayor and Councilmember Supple. Residents can participate live during our public hearings with the City Council. The phone number is 612-861-0651. You'll be connected to me and I can pass you through to the meeting. Residents can also contact me ahead of time to council or ahead of council meetings. If there's a public hearing, you can contact me at my number is 612-861-9711. You can also email me your comments to be read at kwynn@richfieldmn.gov.
Thank you. Executive Director Stark, did you have any information you would like to share?
Thank you, Madam Mayor, Chair Supple. You're not the chair tonight, though. You're Councilmember Supple and other council members. Actually, I am going to pass this along to Assistant Community Development Director Melissa Paleman. She's the project manager for this and has done just a wonderful job on this project.
Thanks, John. Members of the council. So tonight, you're considering the modification to the redevelopment plan and the tax increment plan. I'll just go over a couple of the things that are included in those documents and listed in your staff report as well. But the modification plan includes a map of the district, so it shows where this project would be located at 65th and Lindale. It includes a summary of the HRA and the city's authority to create such a district. It identifies this as a redevelopment district as opposed to a housing district, and the fact that that requires that more than 50% of the existing buildings be found to be structurally substandard, and that finding has been made. It identifies the original net tax capacity that the base taxes will be calculated on. And as a reminder, those taxes will be distributed to all of the local taxing jurisdictions, Hennepin County, the school district, and Richfield, as they were prior to the creation of the district. It talks about the maximum TIF that could theoretically be generated by this project if the district went the full 26 years that it were authorized, that it's allowed to do, which is approximately $23.4 million. It talks about the types of eligible uses for TIF expenditures, including acquisition, affordable housing, and structured parking. And then it includes the but-for analysis, in which there's a conclusion that the resulting development would not reasonably happen without this assistance that the city is providing. So while the TIF plan identifies the maximum amount of tax increment that could be generated, it does not commit the use of those funds. So that $23.4 million is what I'm talking about. The commitment is instead made by the contract for private redevelopment that the HRA approved on November 16th. And in that contract, the HRA pledged up to about $5.7 million to the developer as a TIF pay-as-you-go note to assist in this, this project. The distribution of those funds is detailed in your report. And I'll call your attention specifically to this because it's a little different than we've done in our other districts. In order to get those affordable units that we so very much wanted in this project, the HRA has pledged 90% of the available TIF, the maximum amount, while we retain 10% for administrative administering the district. We pledged 90% of those funds to the development for the first 12 years of the project. That's in order to make sure that those early returns for the developer are high enough to get the project financed in the first place. The HRA will then begin retaining additional funding as the life of the district goes on. And the project returns get better. And that's how we pool that additional 15% for the Housing and Redevelopment Fund. And then I'll also note that this district would only be for 17 years. The maximum allowed is 26, but it will take 17 years to get the developer the amount of assistance needed to finance the development. Here tonight, we have Rebecca Kurtz from Ellers, and I'm going to turn it over to Rebecca quickly to cover or correct anything that I have explained. You're on mute, Rebecca.
Sorry about that. Again, Rebecca Kurtz with Ellers. I have nothing to correct with that view that Melissa provided. It was accurate, and I really don't have anything I can add as far as related to the TIF district. Again, I would just expand a little bit on the analysis that we did do. As she mentioned, Ellers, Melissa, and other staff, as well as the developer, worked quite diligently to try and find that point where we could get the project done to fill the gap. And as outlined, we were able to also get some additional affordable units in addition to the 15% that would be retained for pooling. So with that, I want to just again reiterate the but-for test, that amount of assistance of 5.6 or 5.7 million is that amount needed to fill the gap. And while there are additional funds that could be generated over the term of the district, as we looked at the pro forma analysis, providing additional funds could put the city and HRA in a little bit of a challenge with not meeting the but-for test, because you would have over incentivized the project. But with that, I'm happy to answer questions as the discussion continues this evening.
Madam Mayor, would you like us to do the public hearing now and save the council discussion for later?
Yep, that would be great. Thank you.
Okay, well then we will start the public hearing. Is there anyone on the line?
I currently do not have anybody on the line for the public hearing.
Would you one more time give the information for how to call in?
Certainly. And residents are able to participate live in our public hearings here at the City of Richfield City Council. You can contact me at 612-861-0651, and I can pass you through live to the meeting. Otherwise, you can contact me ahead of City Council meetings at 612-861-9711, or you can feel free to email your comments to be read aloud at the meetings at kwyn@richfieldmn.gov. Again, the number to participate live is 612-861-0651.
So I'm assuming we should probably wait for a minute or two to see if anyone else would call in. I did have a question that it's not technically what we're discussing tonight, because tonight we're discussing the approval of the modification for the redevelopment plan and the tax increment plan. But at the HRA meeting, some information that would provide context to this was given. So I just was wondering if the developer would talk about the things they did to help the current tenants that are businesses there, because I know that was part of that preliminary development agreement. So if you could share that again, I think it's good for the community to hear about it while we're waiting to see if anyone calls in.
Sure. Am I unmuted?
Yes, you are.
Okay. Well, hey, I got it on the first try for once. It's only like the 6th meeting, so that's pretty good for me. Yes, we did. We had a gathering of all of the remaining tenants in the buildings about 3 months ago, where we just kind of laid out exactly where we were, what the plan was, how things were progressing forward, and kind of what those next steps would be. At that meeting, we also collected everybody's email addresses, telephone numbers, gave everybody ours, so that we could kind of create a group chat, so to speak, of a group email where we send out updates on what's going to be happening on site, what's going to be being voted on, kind of just keeping everybody on the same page. We also told everyone at the meetings that if they needed help with relocation, that we had our brokers put together all of the available sites within Richfield, breaking them down by square footages, cost per square foot, lease terms, so on. Told anyone that if they were interested in having that information, that they just needed to reach out to us, and we would be happy to share the information with them and get them hooked up with some of the brokers that we work with. We only had one person reach out to us for that information, and we shared that with them. Basically, the plan going forward would be is if we're successful tonight, we've already talked with the with the building owners and plan to do another group meeting. We'll do it virtually this time, where we can meet with the few folks that are left in the building, give them a new update on what the schedule is going to look like, what our next steps are, but to give them a little bit more finality around timing. And once again, then I'll be able to offer up, any help that we can give. We have told them that the city is working on some redevelopment help, and that when the time comes, we'll be able to have Melissa or John or somebody share that information with them as well, to be able to help them in any way that we can there as well.
Thank you, Director Stark.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. Yeah, I would just add to that in March, the Economic Development Authority considered a displaced business grant fund. At that point in time, we were talking about funding that would equate to approximately $3,000 to $3,500 per displaced business to assist them in relocating. That was never implemented. However, it was put on hold due to COVID and some of the COVID-related expenses that the EDA was undertaking. We do plan on bringing that back to the EDA. Our plan is to bring it back either in December or January, depending on the time sensitivity of the development. And it's possible that the per business amount could be higher because sadly, some of the businesses that had been there were not able to make it through the economic downturn associated with COVID. So the pool of funds that the EDA has to work with are kind of finite. But again, if there were fewer businesses that they were assisting with those funds, it's possible that it could be a little bit more.
Yeah, the basement tenants, all of the basement tenants in both properties are all gone, and the main floor tenants the main floor occupancy is at about 50% right now, with a good share of those only really open because they're getting some rent abatements to try to keep things going. Unfortunately, COVID has taken a pretty heavy toll on a lot of these small type businesses.
And I would just add that I believe 2 or 3 of the businesses have received the EDA forgivable loan grants as well.
Thank you. Administrative Assistant Wynn, has anyone called in for the public hearing?
I still have not received anybody. I do not have anybody waiting for the public hearing.
All right, then I would move to close the public hearing.
Councilmember Whalen, I'll second.
Thank you. Councilmember Supple has made the motion to close the public hearing. It has been seconded by Councilmember Whalen. We will continue our discussion on the item, but we'll close now. So Analyst Martinez Gavinia, could you take the roll call vote to close the public hearing, please?
Mayor Reagan Gonzalez.
Aye.
Councilmember Supple.
Aye.
Councilmember Troutman.
Abstain.
Councilmember Garcia.
Aye.
Councilmember Whalen.
Aye.
We have 4 ayes.
Thank you. The public hearing has been closed and we can move to the next part of this agenda item.
Do we have any questions for staff or the developer?
Councilmember Whalen.
Not so much a question, but just some comments. I was one of the pretty vocal opponents of this development at first, and just think want to say a few things. One, I think the unfortunate, so I appreciate the developer working with the businesses as much as possible. I think the unfortunate circumstance with COVID is that has become less of a certainly for the ones who are still there, it's impactful, but less of a scope. I think my bigger focus continues to be the housing, and I want to express some deep gratitude for the staff and the developer and Ellers and whoever all was involved in the creativity of, like, how can we, it sounds like deciding to sort of front load that TIF is an innovation that helped make the affordable units possible. I appreciate that. I think my biggest celebration is that this is the first in my 2 years on council that I've seen affordable units that aren't studios or one bedrooms. And so that is a huge accomplishment. I'm really happy that that it was that. And I know that it maybe could have been 15 or 20 units if they were studios, but I think the 2 bedrooms is really important. And I know that's a need that we've heard from our residents. I had one resident who I was talking with about affordable housing and the fact that they have mostly or nearly all been studios or one bedrooms, and her immediate reaction was, what am I supposed to do? Throw my kids away? And so that is no small feat. I do though still and I plan I mean, barring further conversation, we'll see, but without any other major considerations being brought up, I'm planning to support this, but I do still think I think we need to continue working toward the deeper affordability, that 60% AMI. This is not going to be more affordable than our naturally occurring affordable housing that exists now. It's going to be brand new. It's going to be really nice. It's going to be wonderful for whoever moves in. But it's not going to be cheaper than what's currently on the market. And so I do want to keep looking at that. And I know the HRA plays a bigger role on the TIF side of things, but I do wonder, with the innovation and creativity around the timing of TIF, I wonder in future efforts if we can't have more of a conversation around, and perhaps this is simply the purview of the HRA and I'm not on the HRA, but I wonder if there is more creativity around like, I know there's the but for requirement, but I wonder if perhaps there could be additional affordable units later on in the possible TIF district, or the potential full length of the TIF district, if that would be allowed when there is more funding available and the developer is not so stretched so thin, because these units are committed to be income restricted for those 15 to 17 years, whatever the length of the district is. But could we add more later on? I will admit I don't fully understand the legal requirements around, like, all of the details of that. But the fact that we consistently have this gap between the potential TIF and the TIF that we actually offer, and yet our hurdle or barrier in conversations around affordable housing is always like, where do we get the funding? I'm curious if there are more innovative solutions there, and I also will offer my gratitude to staff. I know they've been working on some more flexibility with the state on TIF laws since before I was even on council. So I know there's that in the works, but I'm just curious if staff or could comment on if there's any more innovative options there.
Director Stark.
Yeah, and I do appreciate the comments. Just as an example on this project, what we have to solve for in the but-for analysis is the amount of return on investment that the developer should be achieving. You know, if a developer is going into this and getting a 2 or 3% return on their investment, why would they do it? You'd be better off putting your money in the stock market or doing something else with it. There is a number, and it fluctuates. It fluctuates from month to month, from year to year, on what is a reasonable return on investment that a developer would achieve. We rely on Ellers to help us determine that number because they work in communities all across the country. There comes a point where if we were to provide a developer with additional funds, then we would push their return on investment over that return on investment that justifies their receipt of the funds. And so we would be violating the but-for analysis and saying, well, we're giving them more money than they need. It becomes complicated with affordable housing and housing units, trying to calculate how the additional costs of the affordable housing units impact that, how the reduced revenues impact that. But that is something we analyze. It's something we know we need to get better at. Part of that, the reason we need to get better at it is good news. I reported to our HRA last month that we are entitled to more expenditures in our housing and redevelopment fund than we've been making to date. So we really need to spend about $250,000 more per year on housing and redevelopment authority kinds of things, which would include, of course, affordable housing, or else we lose that money. And so we are very motivated to continue to become more creative in how to make this work. This project, and I shared this with Councilmember Whalen via email, but we've kind of been negotiating this particular project for at least 9 months now, and it just becomes very difficult toward the end to kind of repackage everything. Now we have a better understanding of the monies that the HRA has available to it to assist with affordable housing. I think we can do more of exactly what Councilmember Whalen is asking, which is, I think, basically, can we put more public money into this to get more affordable housing out of it? And I think the answer is yes. It's much easier to do that when we know what we're able to put into the project at the beginning, which in this one we were not. So I don't know if I'll use Melissa's refrain. Maybe Rebecca Kurtz would like to correct any misstatements I made or add to that.
I again don't have any corrections that need to be made. I may just add that one of the challenges, and Melissa alluded to this, with the TIF becomes a timing issue. And so as Director Stark said, with the funds that we know are available, we may have resources to address that in the future. But for this project, while there is a budget and over 26 years, we were estimating over $20 million, what was needed was funds right up front to help get that return earlier. And as alluded to, the HRA and staff and developer and everybody worked very hard to find that solution and be a little creative and go outside the typical response and maximize that TIF for the first few years until that return can be built up on its own without the subsidy. And then we will decrease the assistance and still be able to maximize the pooling that's available, have the developer get the return that they need, and provide those affordable units. But it really is a timing issue of when that increment comes in and when the developer needs it for the financing.
Thank you. Are there other questions or comments from the council? Councilmember Supple.
I also was very pleased that we were going to get some 2-bedroom units because there seems to be a scarcity of those for people. And so while I shared the need that we need to have some more deeply affordable units, I think it's at least a start. And I know there's 60% of the AMI, which is not deeply affordable, but we do need to have something that has more bedrooms. So anything that has 2 or 3 bedrooms, I think is a good thing.
Thank you, Councilmember Supple. Other comments or questions from council? I did have a couple. So again, I just want to also say thank you to the staff and to the developer for going back and looking at how we could build in more affordability. I know other council members have said this, but this is clearly something very important to this council, and including, like both Councilmember Supple and Whalen said, larger units. And thank you, Director Stark, for explaining a little bit of what the potential future could look like now for us to do some deeper affordability, because that is also a priority of ours. So thank you very much to everyone for working on that. We do know that that was a big undertaking. I just wanted to add a couple questions, and it's kind of on one issue, and I'm wondering if there's just some coordination that can be done. When the Chamberlain was in their process of building and construction, they put a newsletter out, electronic newsletter, and I can't remember the cadence, if it was every couple weeks or once a month, but they did include council, and I can't remember if they included staff on that. And it sounds like you might be interested in doing something similar with the businesses that are currently in the development. If possible, I guess my question to the developer is, would you be open to also including council members and staff on that correspondence? Just because we're also talking to the businesses, it sounds, there's updates that the city can give. So before I go, I have a question for staff on that, but is that something that the developer would be open to adding some more folks on that email chain?
Sure. We would have no problem doing that, because like I said, our next meeting is really now us laying out a real schedule for everyone, because we had always said that our goal was to start this in April. I don't think that's probably realistic anymore. The arduous process of getting this TIF and affordability thing solved. I think Melissa was really, really tired of talking to me on the phone, because it literally got to the point where I was talking to her like 2 or 3 times a week, and we were just always eternally close. We would be like, well, let's do this, and let's try this, and let's try this, and then we'd start trading pro formas, and Ellers is working on it, and in the end, we always just stayed close. So we really couldn't start any of our processes beyond kind of where we are, because once we flip the switch on, okay, let's go, we'll spend $1 million really, really quickly. So we wanted to make sure that we could get through this process and make sure that everything was going to work before we did that. So because we've kind of spent literally the last 3 months kind of running in place, we've had to kind of juggle our schedule for next year. And what we're doing is we're taking we're doing 4 projects next year. This was supposed to be number 1. We're going to flip this around and make this number 2. So we're probably going to be starting this project in that, June or July window instead of the April and May window. So that will help the people that are there, because it's just going to give them more time. In the meeting that when we met with them, all of them expressed that any extra months past April help, because it's just never fun to move in the early spring. Back then, they were the biggest concerns were more around, can they find space? Part of it is people finding spaces in the right types of buildings, because not everyone that's in that building probably needs true storefront type retail space. So you know, giving some of them a little more time will help. So we'll share that. We'll finalize our schedule. And then when we sit down and meet with, I'm going to meet with the building owners tomorrow. And then we will kind of lay out a schedule for them. We'll send out notice via this email group of, you know, that we were, you know, if we receive our approvals, we've received HRA approval. So we'd like to set up a time to get together with everybody virtually, have anybody that has questions or wants to understand can dial in. We'll walk everybody through that. And then, yeah, then once I'm done with like that portion of it, then our communication will get a little bit less until we get closer to, then it's going to be more along the lines if tenant X is calling and saying, hey, do you know someplace where we could get 3,000 square feet for around this same amount of money? Then we just pass them on to some different folks to try to help them solve that problem. But as far as like the group chatting goes, there probably won't be as much of it anymore at that point because most of the questions will be answered. Then when we get closer to kind of turnover day, then most of our group chat stuff usually revolves around we're doing soils tests on the properties this week. Don't be alarmed when you see a truck outside with a drilling into the parking lot for us to get all of our soil samples. We have to do phase 1 studies. We have to do demolition and remediation studies and all those types of things. There'll be coordination with them. But our biggest goal for them is to make this transition as easy as we possibly can, and to try to be as good of a neighbor as we can. So no problem adding whomever would like to be on it.
Thank you. And then I have a follow-up for staff on that. I don't remember the exact details on who was added from the council on those Chamberlain updates and then who was added with staff, but I really did think that was extremely helpful because the neighbors were being communicated with. We were receiving the same kind of updates because the neighbors were calling us, and so there was just a lot of overlap. And so I'm just wondering for this project and this process, how can I don't know if this is something that we need to be careful with open meeting laws, if the council members are copied in on those updates, and then if staff is open to receiving those as well. You know, I have folks, I talked to 2 businesses. I tried to talk to 3 this week, but I only was able to talk to 2, and I've been in consistent communication with some of them. And both said that they had not heard about the developer, you know, connecting, helping out with finding other locations. One said, yes, we have been on an email chain. That was a while back. Another one said, I haven't been on the email chain. I haven't heard anything. And then that they were both interested in relocating in Richfield and looking. And so I'm just trying to reduce any miscommunications, misunderstandings, understanding that the city of Richfield also has through the EDA some assistance and programs, and making sure that there's consistent communication in that transition and we're all kind of on the same page. So I don't know what staff thinks about that. I'm not trying to put additional burden on staff, but just trying to make it actually easier, hopefully, so that you don't have more coming at us than necessary because of these multiple communications. Assistant Director Pillman.
Mayor, thank you. With the Chamberlain project, Krause Anderson put that newsletter together, and they put it together on a monthly basis. They got an email list put together. They solicited from the neighborhood. They went out and asked, would you like to be part of this? They both delivered it by hand, I believe, and by email. And then they asked if policymakers and staff wanted to be on that list as well. We're certainly open to working with Brian and his team to get something like that out and to participate in that. I do think that those newsletters were helpful. We actually hung them up in the community development department so that everyone would know about that. And so we're happy to help facilitate that.
Thank you. That would be a huge help, I think, in this process.
Melissa, I'm assuming that was Krause doing that during the construction, just so everyone in the neighborhood kind of knew if any big things were happening. Yeah, we've done that in Shakopee to a degree where, because same thing, it's a tight site where, we're impacting other businesses within the downtown when we have, cranes in the air and things like that. So yeah, we have our project managers work with city staff on putting together kind of a those affected list so that we can keep everybody on the same page, just so that everybody knows if there's going to be an interruption to something for a short time or whatever. It's just good to have everybody on the same page.
Thank you. And just to clarify, part of it is the construction, but the part that I'm speaking of is just the transition of businesses into the community, and making sure that they understand that if you guys have resources with your realtor that they can be connected to, that they have access to that, and it's clear communication. If there's options through the EDA or HRA, that they understand that as well, and then the timelines for relocation of the businesses.
Yeah, and if we could get, if you guys could let us know how you want us to communicate the assistance that the city is looking at doing, whether that's some sort of a handout we can include in the emails or something like that, or we want to try to schedule a separate meeting for that, for those who want to know, or maybe there's just a call in because maybe not everybody wants to talk about that in a group setting. But however we want to communicate that, like I said, there's unfortunately not nearly as many people left over in that building. We need to try to help as many of those as we can. They're battling enough with COVID as it is.
Yes, thank you. Are there other questions or comments from council members? All right, it sounds like we have none. So if someone would like to make a motion, please.
This is Councilmember Supple. I would move to adopt a resolution approving a modification to the redevelopment plan for the Richfield redevelopment project and approve a tax increment financing plan for the 2020-3 tax increment finance district link 65.
Great. And I saw Director Stark before we go to the second. Sorry, I did not see.
Yeah, I was just double checking to make sure that the public hearing was closed. It may have been, I just missed it.
Yep.
Okay, sorry.
No, not a problem. All right, is there a second?
I will second, Mayor.
Thank you, Councilmember Garcia. The motion has been made by Councilmember Supple and seconded by Councilmember Garcia. I'll just open it back up again to see if there's additional comments or questions from council on this item before we take a roll call vote. All right, Analyst Martinez Gavinia, could you please take the roll call vote?
Mayor Reagan Gonzalez.
Aye.
Councilmember Supple.
Aye.
Councilmember Trotman.
Abstain.
Councilmember Garcia.
Aye.
Councilmember Whalen.
Aye.
We have 4 ayes.
Thank you. The motion has been approved. Thank you, everyone, for coming tonight. The next item is item number 8, and that will go to Councilmember Whalen.
Thank you, Mayor. This item is to consider a resolution and a first reading of an ordinance establishing a 9-month moratorium on the development of certain properties in the vicinity of Veterans Park. The moratorium would apply to properties that are guided for medium and high density residential or commercial use in the 2040 Richfield Comprehensive Plan. And I'll first note we are changing, or I'm proposing that we change this to a 9-month moratorium based on the timelines needed to make things happen. It was noted as a 6-month moratorium originally in the agenda, and we discussed at the previous work session why 9 months is important. So Veterans Park is an important community asset, providing year-round recreational opportunities for Richfield residents and visitors. The 108-acre park includes important facilities such as the ice arena, pool, mini golf, and band shell, as well as natural space and the Veterans Memorial. The city's comp plan guides land use along the edge of the park, along Portland Avenue and 66th Street, as a mix of low to high density residential and community commercial, but provides no specific guidance for how these parcels relate to the park itself. The American Legion owns a large piece of property that essentially extends into the park. And as the Legion prepares to sell this property, staff has begun considering how the redevelopment of this parcel and others nearby could be done in a way that would be complementary to the park, adding value to any potential redevelopment and also to one of the city's most popular destinations. Staff is recommending the City Council conduct a planning study of the area along Portland Avenue between Highway 62 and 67th Street and on 66th Street between 5th Avenue and 11th Avenue. The study would provide an opportunity for additional policymaker and community engagement to better inform redevelopment goals. In order to conduct this study, staff recommends a short-term 9-month moratorium on properties with a planned land use designation of medium density residential, high density residential, or community commercial in the 2040 comp plan. Without a moratorium, development could occur in this area that satisfies the minimum requirements of the zoning code, but does not meet the intent or long-term goals of the city. The likely outcome of a study would be a recommendation for either zoning modification through adoption of an overlay district, similar to what has been done for the Penn Avenue corridor, or design guidelines. In either case, the purpose would be to ensure that private and public investments in the area work together for mutual benefit. With that, I will pass it off to staff if staff have anything to add.
Director Stark. You're still muted.
Sorry. Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor and Councilmember Whalen. For those that were not privy to the work session, I would just add that as Councilmember Whalen noted, originally this was requested as a 6-month moratorium for the planning study. We are asking to build in an additional 3 months on the front end to do a little bit more analysis on what community space might look like at this site and what the resources that the city has to provide for that space, the financial resources and other. So that's the reason for the extension to 9 months. I would also note that the council could, if they adopted a 9-month moratorium, they could end it at any time by vote. Prior to that, the council, the way that this is written, would also have the ability to grant exceptions if there was an unusual situation that came up. With that, myself or other staff members could answer any other questions you might have.
Thank you, Director Stark. Before we go to council members, I just want to give a reminder on the fact that this is a first reading. Normally, first readings might go on the consent calendar, but given that this is a really big issue and an important piece of property in our community, we did pull it off the consent calendar. And so this is just approval of the first reading. And at the next council meeting, we will have the public hearing and the actual vote on this item. So this is just time to have a more robust discussion on this item. So just wanted to make that clarification. I will pass it on to Councilmember Garcia, and then I saw Councilmember Supple's hand up as well after that.
Thank you, Mayor. I wanted to ask staff if the planners that they're suggesting, do they have they worked with like LISC to bring together some practical idea?
Director Stark.
Yeah, and actually on that side of things, I believe that it is really Eller's Associates, our financial analysts, that would be helping us identify funding sources. They've worked with other communities on financing community centers. So that's really part of the first part of the process. And I don't know if City Manager Rodriguez has anything to add to that.
Yes, thank you. We're planning to contract with Ellers to provide some financial guidance on potentially a funding plan or what the financial impact would be for buying the property and building community space or partnering with a future developer to provide community space. Ellers is our financial advisor. They're very familiar with our financial condition. And so that I felt was the best way to provide that quickly to the council so that we can proceed with the plan after that.
And
then I want to ask if Director Regis should be part of this whole discussion with the Ellers group too.
I talked to Director Regis about it this week, and we will be bringing him in as well.
Good. Thank you. Mayor, you want me to continue?
Yep, go ahead, Councilmember Garcia.
You know, when we look at Veterans Memorial Park, it's such an institution. It's a flagship park. It's really something that we as a city and as a community utilize and should be proud of. And we should work with whomever we can work with to see if we can find a solution that would be of help not only to the American Legion, but also to the city. Or if that's, you know, if that's not helpful, then maybe we can get another organization that might want to work with us in that development that that would really be more of a contributor instead of a taker of that parcel of land. I want to reach out and make sure that we exhaust every possibility, you know, that we work with. I know that Mayor Reagan Gonzalez has talked about having the Boys and Girls Club maybe be part of it. We've talked about having maybe the veterans with physical disabilities, the housing. We've talked because that would really work well with Veterans Park to have disability housing for veterans. You know, we might also want to see if there's any other organizations that might want to partner with us so they can be visible in a suburb where, you know, we're quite frankly, you know, we're doing quite well in our development and in our plans for the future. So all the options should be open, and you know, and let's get as much information as we can from as many people as we can, and continue to keep our options open and continue to explore and develop some concrete plan that we can at least start to place on the discussion table. That's it.
Thank you, Councilmember Garcia. Before we go to Councilmember Supple and then Councilmember Whalen, I just want to get a clarification. I might have stated the item incorrectly for tonight for the first reading. So can we go back? So we are reviewing the attached resolution, which would be the moratorium itself. So putting the moratorium, the vote will be tonight. And then we will be voting on that resolution. And then the second reading in the public forum will be at the next meeting. Is that correct? Can you just clarify that? I want to make sure I stated it correctly. Assistant Director Pillman.
Mayor Reagan Gonzalez. So typically you need to adopt a moratorium, an interim moratorium as an interim ordinance. So it requires a first reading and a second reading in order to put something in place immediately to make sure that we don't receive an application between the first reading and the second reading. The city has typically also adopted a resolution. City Attorney Teachin can talk to the enforceability of that resolution, but historically, this is how we have adopted a moratorium.
City Attorney Teagan.
Mayor, and thank you, Melissa. Yes, I think Melissa has described it correctly. I think the adoption of the resolution is a way to just get something in place right away prior to going through the formal process of getting the ordinance into place.
And I think we really need a moratorium because, you know, all of this takes a lot of time and a lot of effort. And, you know, we want to make sure that we take advantage of whatever opportunities there are for us in this moratorium.
Thank you, Councilmember Garcia. I'm going to move to the next comments on the council. I just wanted to clarify that. Thank you, City Attorney Teagan and Assistant Director Paleman for making that clarification. Now, I think it was Councilmember Supple. Is that who I said was next? And then Councilmember Troutman. All right, thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. First of all, I want to say thank you to the American Legion that they put on a very good presentation at the work session before this, and to all the staff and everybody who's been working on this. There was so much robust discussion, we didn't get to ask all the questions. So one question I do have for staff is, it said it was talking about the proposed areas for the boundaries for the study area. And I was looking at the boundaries and most of them made sense to me, but I'm curious as to why on the portion on 66th Street that goes south, or excuse me, on the portion of Portland Avenue that goes south of 66th Street, I know part of that block is open land, but is there a reason it extends all the way to the end of the block, including some houses? I'm curious as to why those boundaries were placed.
Assistant Director Paleman.
Councilmember Supple. Yes, so the boundary extended south to include all of those properties because that entire block is guided for a higher density housing than it currently is. And so if we're going to explore the properties that are currently vacant that the HRA actually owns right now, we thought it made sense to include the other properties that are guided in that same manner.
Thank you, that's helpful. I do think that this is an opportunity that's not going to come up very often. It's something that's like once in a generation. And so we need to be very prudent and careful about how we think about it. So I do think exploring the financial feasibility of it makes good sense. Because if things were ideal and we had lots of money, I would say, hey, let's go for it and put in public amenities and do all these things. But I don't want to put the city at risk with the pandemic going on and the financial things. So I do think we need to consider it carefully. I also understand that the Legion is in a financial fix as well. So if we can do this in an expeditious manner, that would be helpful. But I do think it's in the city's best interest that we take time to look at what is possible. And so I will be supporting the moratorium, but I would also ask that anything we can do to work with the Legion and speed things up as much as possible would be something that we need to be doing. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember. Director Markle, and then Councilmember Troutman.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor and Council. You know, I think the moratorium is really important, just to take our time, a little bit more time, and look at the community needs and this opportunity, and really take a look at what this space could be, because it is such a unique opportunity. I also feel like the development standard piece is really important, because no matter what gets built there, you know, it's a sensitive area. It's a wetland. It has a lot of wildlife. It means a lot to a lot of community members. They're very vocal about that. And so I feel like taking the time to make sure those standards are in place, so anything that gets built kind of jives with the whole park and it makes sense. And aesthetically makes sense too with the natural setting of the park. And I'll work as diligently as possible with City Manager Rodriguez to gather the data to bring back to the council, to better understand the needs of the community, what that community space could look like, and then the costs associated with that. We did reach out to the Minnesota Recreation and Parks Association. So every single city involved with that organization was asked the question, if you have a community center, what was the funding mechanism for it and how is it operationally funded currently. So I'm starting to gather data from different cities on how they partnered, how they leveraged funds, how they have local city taxes that help support it. So I'm hopeful we can bring this data back and we can look at the community needs, creatively how it could be funded and what's realistic with our current financial situation moving forward.
Thank you, Director Markle. Councilmember Troman.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you to staff. I appreciate the conversation here. I think I'm understanding a little bit more even than when I was looking at this earlier this week. And I just have a clarification because it's really a zoning issue and I think Director Markle just said this, that irrespective of whether or not we move forward with partnering, and I really hope that we do find a way to partner with the Legion, we still would have this work to do because this hasn't been this isn't currently it's guided, but there's zoning work to do irrespective of our purchase. Is that correct? Maybe I'll direct that either to Director Stark or Director Markle.
Yeah, I can take that. Thank you. First of all, I can guarantee you that there will be some sharing with whatever happens there. It's just the degree that we're really talking about. I mean, we are really committed that even if the center per se, that there would be community assets there to doing everything we can there. But that is true. Right now, the site is zoned very differently than it's guided in the comprehensive plan. So no matter what happens there, it will have to be a rezoning. And as Director Markle said, there are some really specific things that we will want to address as part of land use to make it an appropriate neighbor to our park, to our kind of gem of a park there, and other public uses.
Thank you for that, Director Stark, and I think that's helpful. Just as we communicate with the American Legion, as this is they don't perceive this as an opportunity for us to try and intentionally slow this project down. And I don't know that they do, but this is whether or not we partner with them, we have to do this work because it abuts such an asset for our community. And I did have a question along those lines, because this work is it fair to say that the zoning work and the financial feasibility work both need to be done? Is there any way to pursue those, or does it make sense to pursue those simultaneously so it's not waiting for one and then starting the other? Or do we really need to wait and do the financial analysis before we begin the zoning conversation?
City Manager Rodriguez. Oh, sorry. City Manager Rodriguez, and then Director Markle.
Thank you, Mayor. First, I want to explain the American Legion were going through their process with their membership, and we actually pushed back the work session because of that. So we were trying to respect their process. I appreciate that this is a longer delay than they would like, and I feel bad for them about that. But I also have to provide a process for our council and our community to make these decisions and make those decisions well. And so that's what we're trying to do. I believe it has to be a two-step process. The first step is to look at the financial feasibility of buying and building a community center, or potentially partnering on some kind of community space. And what does that look like? I need to bring that back to council so that they can make a decision on that. And once that decision is made, then that will inform this planning process so that they can do the design standards about what do we want it to look like, anything that was potentially built there. I don't think you can do the planning process effectively and with the design standards without answering that first question.
Thanks for clarifying.
Director Merkel, did you have anything additional to add after that?
No, Mayor.
Thank you. Councilmember Whalen.
Thank you, Mayor. I think I completely agree that this is a really important opportunity to take the time to process and make sure that we have, again, whether to Councilmember Troutman's point, whether it becomes feasible after the research to do some amount of partnership and like financial contribution and potential like shared ownership or whatever that looks like. Whether or not that's possible, I think making sure that this is conducive to what's already happening at the park is absolutely essential. And I also appreciate that this does put the Legion in a hard spot of having less flexibility, but that flexibility is precisely what is worrying to me. That I don't want just anything to go in there. I don't want it to happen more quickly than the community and our staff and everyone has a chance to provide input on. And so I think this is the right move. I would agree though with Councilmember Supple's point about, and I trust our staff will do this to move this as quickly as possible while still maintaining the quality and the integrity of the process. I think one of the biggest concerns that I heard in the work session that certainly has been the case in some developments and not in others, but just that things can be delayed and some of that is not predictable or preventable. But I think to me, and I tried to mention this a bit at the work session, but to me, what still seems feasible if things go as well as possible. I mean, the commander of the Legion spoke about their need for to gather input from their members in terms of what they would like to continue using the site for, even if they are not the owners. And I realized we did not ask him a timeline on that, but if that timeline was similar to our timeline for step one, and that we have maybe not a final decision, but a very clear direction on what amount of role the city plays after the financial conversation that we have in January. If we know that around the same time that they know from their members what they are looking to build on the site, then I would just hope that we, as much of a role we have, whether we are investing in it ourselves or simply communicating on the planning process, just continuing to communicate with them, and that we, as much as possible, give them ideas up front of what it is likely to be. And as Director Stark shared in the work session, then to, if it is fairly straightforward and clear, to help them get to a point of a sale and a plan and moving that process along as quickly as possible. I think to me that seems like the best attempt, and what I hear from all parties is the goal, so that we do get to this final result as quickly as possible as a development that serves the Legion, serves the broader community, and serves whatever uses end up going in there. So those are my rambling thoughts.
Thank you, Councilmember Whalen. I had heard, I believe, I'm trying to think, this is at the work session, but I don't know if staff can confirm, in terms of the timeline that Councilmember Whalen spoke about, that engagement with their members has been completed. Is that correct, or they still have to do it?
So my understanding is that their membership has voted to sell the building. I think they are still talking to their membership about developers' proposals and what that would look like for them to have a space in any future development. So I believe that that engagement with our membership is ongoing.
Got it. Thank you. So I just wanted to add to a few things. So we talked about this at the work session, but again, to just share for folks that haven't heard the work session yet, there is the balancing of the best, what's best for the entire community, how to support what's best for the Legion, the city, the residents, given that they are in facing financial hardship, which is why they are selling this property. And then given that this is a gem of our city and this redevelopment is a once in a lifetime opportunity, and understanding that they are owners of the land that is adjacent to our park. And I heard our staff talk about, getting a better understanding of the depth and having that balancing act where we're threading the needle between trying to support the Legion and moving their goals forward and not stunting their progress and their growth and their future, but also meeting the needs of our community. And then I hear, Council Member Garcia saying we need to look at all of our different options. And so there is a clear balancing act here that I just want to acknowledge. And, I'm confident that our staff you have been conscious of that the whole time in this process. And I know that that's something that we need to continue holding. And given the fact, the piece that we discussed in the work session is working with Ellers and what does that look like and the process and the timeline, and then working with this consulting group on engagement in the community. I know there's options for what that looks like, the timelines for those things and how robust or deep we go and what goes first if they're done in tangent. So I know that staff is looking at how that all goes together, and I understand that you'll come back to us and give us what you think the best process is to do this in an expedited way, but also do the due diligence, and that there's a couple options for what that looks like moving forward. And if that means ruling out some options up front and doing a more general initial analysis so that we can move that part forward versus doing all of that together and more robust on the front end. So I just want to say that I understand that we're balancing that, and I trust our staff, in the recommendations they give on how to do that best to move this forward for everybody. Councilmember Supple.
I just wanted to ask one other clarification question. You had mentioned the engagement, and I know a lot of the community members have passionate feelings about this and want to engage. What will be the subject of the public hearing at our next meeting? And then how will the community engagement work through the process into the future? If staff could clarify that, that would be great.
Assistant Director Pellman.
Sure. Thank you, Mayor. The public hearing will be specifically about the adoption of the moratorium. It will not have anything to do with the process or how we might want to partner with the Legion. It's specifically about the adoption of the moratorium. The people that will be sent notification about that are the properties that are affected. It will not go to a larger group than that. Beyond that, you had a question about community engagement. And I think that this early initial study that Director Markle and City Manager Rodriguez will work on will help to inform that later engagement piece. I think one of my concerns is that we would get too ahead of ourselves on community engagement and allow a discussion of options that might not be feasible. And so I think my preference would be for you to think about what might be financially possible for us to do as partners, and then take a menu to the community with items that are realistic, as opposed to letting the community imagine something that is just not possible.
Other questions or comments, Director Merkel?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. I just want to add too, I do have some data from our Parks Master Plan that does illustrate the desire for a community center, and it's been kind of outlined what sort of amenities the community had noted they were interested in when the Parks Master Plan was developed a few years ago. So in looking at that, I think we can kind of put price tags to what some of these things realistically would cost in a potential community center and see what is even feasible.
Thank you, Director Merkel. Other comments or questions from council members? All right, if there's no other comments or questions, if folks could make a motion, if someone would like to make a motion in a second.
Yes, I will, Councilmember Whalen here. I would like to make an amended motion again for a 9-month instead of 6-month, that we adopt the attached resolution and conduct a first reading of the attached ordinance establishing a 9-month moratorium on the development of properties in the vicinity of Veterans Park that are guided for medium or high density residential or commercial use in the 2040 comprehensive plan, and schedule a public hearing and second reading of the attached ordinance for December 8th, 2020.
I second that, Mayor.
Thank you. The motion has been made by Councilmember Whalen and seconded by Councilmember Garcia. Are there additional comments or questions from the council members? All right, Analyst Martinez Gavinia, if you could please take the roll call vote.
Mayor Reagan Gonzalez.
Aye.
Councilmember Supple.
Aye.
Councilmember Trotman. Member Garcia.
Aye.
Councilmember Whalen.
Aye.
5 ayes.
Thank you. The motion has been approved. The next item is the city manager's report with City Manager Rodriguez.
Thank you, Mayor. We had a presentation today at our work session from Bloomington Public Health. They just talked about how the virus is resurgent again, as you are aware, and it is resurgent in Richfield. They also talked about that we will have a citywide mailer going out early next week that will have 2 resource sheets, one focused on housing and the other focused on COVID-related help for community. It will also include a new program by Minnesota Department of Health that provides culturally specific services in multiple languages, which I think will be really helpful. Both flyers and the cover letter will be in both English and Spanish. And that's all I have for my report tonight.
Thank you. Other comments or questions for City Manager Rodriguez on the report? Councilmember Supple.
I just wanted to say thank you first for the information at the work session. And something that struck me is when the gentleman from Bloomington Public Health talked about one of the things that was driving the increases is that people felt they didn't have a choice between whether they went to work or whether they stayed home in quarantine because they didn't have paid sick leave and they felt they needed to go to work to support their family. And so I'm hoping that sometime in the future, that's an issue we can examine as a council. So I just wanted to add that to your comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Supple. Other comments from Councilmember Whalen.
I don't know if this is worth or even possible to, I don't know what stage the mailing is in, but I know the state just announced the last couple of days a new app for folks who have smartphones that it's called COVID Aware MN that helps. It basically like anonymously and securely just tracks like what other phones you interact with. And then anyone who has the app and gets a positive COVID test can enter in a code. And then any phone that basically it helps track if you were likely to be exposed, if you should be considering quarantining, and can help spread or help stop the spread of the virus. And so would encourage folks to check that out if you are someone who has a smartphone, especially if you are someone who is needing to be in public spaces frequently for work or other things where you aren't able to isolate as much.
It's a good idea.
Other comments on the city manager's report? Councilmember Garcia, did you have some comments on the report?
Well, one of the things I that I'm really, really appreciative of is the fact that, Jennifer Anderson and their team and in the city, that they're working together to really, I've looked at other city websites, and I think that we do a really outstanding job in keeping people apprised of the coronavirus and all that's happening. And I think we also, the other thing that's really great is when I'm out in Richfield and I see people wearing a mask, and I appreciate that very, very much.
Thank you, Councilmember Garcia. Councilmember Troutman.
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to say a big thank you to our staff, and especially since we have a second wave, we have something to compare to, and it's hard to believe that it was only 6 months ago that we were struggling with the first wave. And I think it's worthwhile to reflect on just the ocean of work that you guys have accomplished, and how many processes you've changed and reoriented, and how you've pivoted, and how smooth the city is continuing to run even in the midst of all this. So we know we're through a second in the midst of a second and bigger surge, but we just want to recognize the incredible work that got us to this point, and just recognize and say thank you for what you're doing in the midst of this. And please don't give up the fight. I know you're not, but please keep it up.
Thank you. Other comments on the city manager's report? All right, we will pass it to claims and payroll. That's Councilmember Garcia.
Thank you, Mayor. And I believe that in December we're only having one meeting, right?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. It's very nice of you to have planned that on my birthday. So hint, hint.
Absolutely. That's why we have it on that day.
Hey, wonderful. So anyway, I will move claims and payroll.
Councilmember Troutman, second.
Thank you. Claims and payroll has been moved by Councilmember Garcia and seconded by Councilmember Troutman. Analyst Martinez Gavinia, could you please take the roll call vote?
Mayor Reagan Gonzalez.
Aye.
Councilmember Stoppel.
Aye.
Councilmember Troutman. Councilmember Garcia.
Aye.
Councilmember Whalen.
Aye.
5 ayes.
Thank you. Claims and payroll has been passed. Hats off to Hometown Hits. I'll start with Councilmember Garcia.
I really didn't have anything planned, but I do want to congratulate our firefighter battalion chief, and Ms. Woods. I can't remember her first name, but
Janelle.
I think. Okay, Janelle. Thank you. And because I'm really, it's really good that we're moving people into other positions and giving them an opportunity and giving women an opportunity. I also wanted to talk about Kristen Asher. I remember when she was appointed to be director of Public Works, and I remember that because I said this is a first for Richfield to have a female director, and I thought that that we had done good. But I know right now that from seeing her in action and seeing her complete, projects that are just, can be very tiresome and very, not very well received. How she works so well in having that public engagement that she's got. The other thing I'd like to thank her for is that, when something goes on in the city, in her department, that she often sends some of her staff to other commissions to bring them up to speed. And I think that's a wonderful idea and wonderful plan so that we can all be on the same page. So my hat's off to Director Asher. And also I wanted to say to all of you, I mean, you guys have really, really done a good job. I remember, Mayor Reagan Gonzalez, I remember all the council members that came on board. And, from the first time you showed up to now, all I can say is you've improved so much in your education of the city, in your participation of what's going on in the city, and in your active, support of not only our city staff, but our community. And I will be leaving the council, but I will also be really, really pleased that Sean Hayford or Leary will be taking over the Ward 2 seat. He brings so much to the community, and he is so well versed already, not only because of his degree in urban planning, but because he's been a good partner in other things that he's done in the city, not only biking, but in development and what have you, So I'm pleased and that, that I think the council and all of you, Mayor, and the four of you have done just a beautiful, beautiful job. And I appreciate it. And I will continue to always, root for you and root for our city. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Councilmember Garcia. I will pass it on to Councilmember Troutman.
Thank you, Mayor. One hats off to our a local poet who posted a photo with her mother of a poem that she wrote for her mother, and I think it'll take about 25 seconds. But I was just going to read that poem real quickly, and it's right on 66th Street, just east of 35W. And it's called Role Reversal. And it says, she takes her first steps, holding tightly to my arm. I watch carefully, wishing her no harm. She walks down the same hall, past the same photos on the wall, only now the tables have turned, and the daughter watches over the mother as the lessons of love have been learned. And that's Carol Groner's poem. And I was just so blessed by the commitment that the city's made to make art like that and poetry like that a part of daily walks for our community. It's such a small but thoughtful investment, and I just wanted to lift up Carol Groner for taking the risk. It's always one level of risk to take your heart and put it into a poem, and then it's like a different level of risk to take that poem and put it out in public. And so it was beautiful, and I love that it was a Richfield resident who told that very Richfield story. And so we wanted to take hats off to Carol and her mother today.
Thank you, Councilmember Troutman. Councilmember Whalen.
Thank you, Mayor. Two things from me. One, there's been some good community conversations already, and will be many more, but just for folks who hadn't heard yet, we have started now the process toward organized collection. I've gotten notes from a few residents and seen conversations on social media about it. Please reach out to us. Please reach out to sustainability specialist Rachel Lindholm on city staff to share your thoughts, your input. There will be more proactive community engagement plans ready to share soon. But know that that's something that residents care about, and want to encourage them to keep reaching out. And then the only other thing is, which maybe could have said with the COVID update, but just, of course, want to wish people a very happy Thanksgiving. I hope that you find ways to celebrate. I know for some folks, as was mentioned, that staying home is not, it doesn't feel like an option for work or childcare or whatever the case may be. But if you have the option to stay home this Thanksgiving, please, for everyone's sake, do not. It is not worth having Thanksgiving with anyone outside your own household. It's just not the time. There's more things to come that we want to make sure everyone's there for. And so I just would encourage people to get creative. I've heard ideas of virtual things. I mean, certainly, like, you can leave the house with your own family, go on walks, make a different Thanksgiving tradition this year. But please, if you have not yet had the hard and sad conversation about what this year looks like and how that needs to be different than what other years maybe have looked like, please do that ASAP and make a plan to not be around other households.
Thank you, Councilmember Whalen. Councilmember Supple.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I wanted to echo what Councilmember Garcia said in giving kudos to Director Asher, who has again been honored by her colleagues around the state from the American Public Works Association. We know how wonderful she is, and she's also being recognized by her colleagues in her profession. So congratulations to her on getting the Hugo G. Erickson Award. I also wanted to say thank you to everyone that's been involved from Bloomington Public Health, our emergency director, Chief Henthorne, and our public health administrator, Jennifer Anderson, and all of the staff. Everybody has been doing so much to help keep us safe and to work to try and figure out the best way to move forward through this pandemic and keep everyone healthy. And my final thing is I want to put the word out to community members. We listened to 3 great commission reports this evening and 2 the last meeting. And starting December 1st, there's going to be openings for people to apply to be members of the commissions. So we need people to step forward and say, hey, I want to be on the Arts Commission. I want to be on the Friendship City Commission. I want to be on the Community Services Commission. I'd like to be on the Transportation Commission. I'd like to be on the Sustainability Commission. I want to be on, I'm probably forgetting a couple of them, but there are so many different opportunities to serve, and we really need you. So please seriously consider applying to be on a commission. And I believe the applications will be out December 1st. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Supple. I just want to say thank you to the whole community. I mean, I feel so emotional. I think, we're probably all emotional these days, but the amount of tremendous acts of courage and leadership and kindness that I just continue to see in our whole community, our students, our teachers, our families, our frontline workers, our staff. I don't even know how to express the level of gratitude for everybody in our community. I feel a little speechless. But things are extremely tough right now, and things will continue to be tough for a long time. And I just see over and over again how the community of Richfield and our staff and all our leaders are just doing an exceptional job and never giving up and getting energy from who knows where, and pulling resources and making connections and making magic happen. And I just want to say thank you. There's no amount of gratitude that can express the gratitude that I have to be a part of this tremendous community and to be able to work with such exceptional staff and such exceptional leaders and community members. So I'm just extremely thankful for the leaders that we have in this city. And it's very touching and very moving. And I feel very honored to be a part of this. And I know things are tough, but we are in this together. And I want to remind everybody, we are here to pull together. So thanks to our entire community, to all of our staff who have just done such a great job in leading as a collective. So I hope everybody has a nice Thanksgiving, socially isolated and at home, alone with your own household this season. I will adjourn our meeting. Thank you, everybody. Have a great night.